Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. If this is your first time with us, thank you. Tonight's event is presented jointly by DPD and MPDC, and those acronyms are Chicago Department of Planning and Development and the McKinley Park Development Council. For us, we host a not quite monthly event here at the library, so if you like what you see, please come back and see us again. But we're a community group that advocates for the McKinley Park neighborhood and everything related to our built environment. And so naturally, we would want to host somebody who's going to come in and build things in our neighborhood, and let neighbors learn about this new opportunity. So if you haven't already signed in, please do take a minute. First off, if you want to be on our mailing list, this will get you there. And if that's not your interest, we still really appreciate getting a head count because it helps us with our funding to be able to continue to present these kinds of events. Anybody need a sec for the QR code? Okay. There's also one on the back table. Go ahead, sir. So tonight, we're going to present a couple of things. First off, we are streaming on YouTube, so if you see something you want to look at again later, it should be there. So snacks are on the table. Feel free to get up at any time during the event and help with the snacks. We sometimes take stuff home, but it's better if you eat it here. And I don't think if anybody needs an interpreter tonight. I'm not seeing any of our usuals. Okay. So this is our agenda, and this is our photo this month is a group of students from DePaul who came down to do a tour of the revitalization of 35th Street and also with Brick of Chicago. If you're not familiar with this individual, he does tours looking at bricks and kind of telling the history of the city through some of our maybe less renowned architecture, which is pretty cool. Great. So big news. A couple of months ago, we announced that we have won a grant from the city to funnel $1.8 million in construction funds into 35th Street. And the first application deadline for that program was last Friday. And we had at least 8 applications for about $1 million. So we're really excited to see what happens with those. We will find the results out this summer. We know that the applicants include 4 vacant buildings to get them ready to lease and 4 active businesses. We're waiting for the final summary of exactly everything that made it in, but we're excited about this. For those of you who have not been following this project, 35th Street was down zoned to residential in 2004, which means that we had a lot of storefronts that were not legally allowed to open. So we got our zoning back last year, and now we're trying to bring in the resources to get all of those storefronts ready to open again. So this is a really, really big deal for our community to have these resources to bring in more mom and pop stores. This is a 3-year program, so if you know anybody who owns a storefront or is interested in opening a business in a storefront in this geography here, there will be more opportunities to apply. We'll keep taking applications every quarter until we run out of money. So the next application deadline will be sometime this summer. And then in addition to the construction funds, there's also money available for public art and for amenities at the street level, including things hopefully like wayfinding, murals, and we are available to talk to anyone who has said is affiliated with the building in this geography or anyone who is interested in opening a business in this geography. We have resources to help businesses as well. Slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so also 2 weeks ago, we had River Day, which is a citywide event celebrating the Chicago River, kind of opens the water activities season with activities at 80 locations around the city. That's presented by Friends of the Chicago River. We participated in events and festivities at Park 571 to talk about the expansion of Park 571. So here's the existing park. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is kind of at the confluence of the Chicago River and Bubbly Creek. It is the primary water sports access for both McKinley Park and Bridgeport. And the lot next door to this park is a Superfund site currently being remediated by Keeble's Gas. And so we are asking neighbors to share what they would like to see in a future park here. And we're going to use that information to do some visioning drawings, which we will then use to fundraise to hopefully buy the lot when the remediation is completed. And so that sounds a little scary that we might put a park on a former Superfund site. I want to point out that the existing park was also a Superfund site and it's gone just fine. So this is something that the park district has had practice with and done successfully. So for those of you who weren't able to come out for River Day, we are waiting for the digital version of this and we'll be distributing it electronically as soon as we can if you'd like to participate in some visioning. All right, and now we have some upcoming events. You might have heard that there's a new development coming in on the other side of Bubbly Creek, like right at foot of the Archer Bridge. That's this. Chinese American Service League wants to build a community campus there, and it's going to include a wide variety of services. Some things they're talking about include Head Start, senior housing, possibly like other forms of educational, cultural, financial assistance kinds of services. And on the 28th, so next Thursday, they are having a big event to talk about what people want to see on their campus. And this is a really great opportunity to bring more services into the neighborhood that we haven't historically had. I also want to point out that despite the name, they also offer services in Spanish. So even though Chinese American Service League is actually the largest social service provider in the Midwest, but they don't just serve the Chinese community. So one thing about the location, this is at Horizon Science Academy in Bridgeport. There are 2 locations, so not hours on Pershing. Please do actually look at the address if you want to participate in this event. All right, I'm running through this really fast. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, please.
Yeah, so this is connected to the previous thing that you were talking about?
No, they're separate.
Okay, so then how are they connected? Obviously, they're geographically connected.
That's the point, yeah.
Right, like how are they connected right now?
So right now, so this is, so you see that dot right there?
Yeah.
So this is, this lot is on Bubbly Creek, just south of I-55. And then the park that we were talking about is actually kind of around the corner, just north of I-55. But at our events, we talk about a wide variety of opportunities that will affect our community and provide services or opportunities or problems to residents. And so that's the reason for these updates.
And then you're representing the city or?
No, we are a nonprofit that works for the neighborhood.
Okay, gotcha.
There are city representatives here and they're going to speak later.
Gotcha. That's why I came late, so I was just wondering, like, agenda, what part of the agenda is this?
This is the beginning. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
A couple slides ago, so
Yeah.
1.8 million in grants.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like that's just all pure grant money. Is there any support from like community banks on providing financing that would be coupled with that?
Yes, we're not handling that, but we can make some introductions for anybody who needs that assistance. Usually for the financing piece, we can say, you know, these are some banks that we know work with other businesses, but we also work with several business incubators in the area. There are several business incubators that serve our area, and they also have more direct connections with banks. So if you want to talk offline, it sounds like this is a perfect need. We'd be really happy to do that. Great, yeah. All right, next.
Sorry.
This one. Okay. So also at the same time as the CASL meeting, so you have to choose. There's also going to be a community meeting about our public preschool. So Velma Thomas, for those of you who have not been following this one, there is our public preschool. Their building was sold last year, and I want to point out they have a 10-year lease on the building they are in. Okay, so this is no longer an emergency situation. We were able to secure that when at the time that this building is sold and made sure that it transferred the property. However, at the time that happened, there was a lot of conversation about whether this really was the right building for the school, and there have been some issues with the landlord this year, specifically with keeping the heat on. And there were several days of schools missed this year because of problems with that. So anyway, shortly after the building sold, there was a working group convened to talk about what is really the right building, what is the right physical space for this school, and how do we get that, and is it here or is it somewhere else, and what are the choices? And so this is going to be a public meeting about those choices, where the working group is going to present what has been done so far, and then ask parents and community representatives, what are the most important things that should be considered in making a recommendation to the school board about the building. So that's what that's about. That will be at Evergreen. It will not be at Velma. It will be at Evergreen Academy Middle School, also next Thursday night. And finally, this was kind of late breaking. There is a proposed strip mall at Ashland and Pershing. We found, normally we would publicize a meeting about this, but we found out about it Monday afternoon for a 5 o'clock Monday meeting. So instead we just went and now we're talking about it. And the proposal is for small retail spaces. And so if you've been following, this lot has been vacant for years. It's actually 3 city lots. And so the proposal is small retail, single story, and that would require a rezoning, which is why it's coming before the 11th board. I want to point out this is the 11th. We have the 12th here tonight. Thank you for coming. So on the one hand, like rezoning this is good because right now it's zoned for manufacturing and we don't want another polluter there by right. But on the other hand, this design is not conforming to a number of documents that they should be complying with. So we brought that up at the meeting, and we've also had some further conversations with the planning department and the Alderwoman Lee. And so I think this one's going to be continued conversation to get to something that does conform. Some of the primary issue is that things are supposed to look like you can walk there, and there are regulations about that. So this really should be so that the entrance is off of the sidewalk and should de-emphasize driving to this location. That does not mean no parking. It means parking not into the front. All right, so just be really clear about that. But hopefully, if we are able to work something out here, it really could be a first step towards making that area feel more walkable, which would be a really good thing. So, stay tuned for more on this one. All right. Questions about any of that before I turn it over to our first speaker? Okay. So tonight we do have something kind of unique. We have one guest speaker. Tonight we have 2. So first we're going to hear from Delilah Salgado, who's an artist in the neighborhood, and she's going to talk about the art project coming in at Canalport Riverwalk. Yay! You can stay here.
Like Kate said, I live in a neighborhood, and I've been working for the past couple of years on a project. In 2003, we did a project at Canalport Riverwalk called La Bienvenida, the river of welcome, where we created a sculpture and a mosaic piece around the planter. This year, I was selected as an artist in residence to work in an organization that works in environmental justice and it's work with Closer Rights Organization. And we have the project is in our Chicago Artist in Residency.
Can you speak up? Oh, okay. We got a good crowd tonight.
Yeah. So this is just information about Federal. Federal stands for Closer Environmental Rights and Reform Organization. It is a grassroots community group of Closer residents that formed in 2004 to fight disproportionate amount of pollution in the Pilsen neighborhood. Federal believes all people have the right to live in a clean and healthy environment, regardless of their race and class. Our mission is to spread awareness about the concept of environmental justice and make Pilsen a healthier place to live, work, and raise families. We advocate for the health and safety of the Pilsen community by informing residents about the health dangers and pollution from all sources in Pilsen. Working with all the city departments, EPA, elected officials, and community-based organizations at all levels to develop a solution for reducing pollution and making Pilsen a cleaner place to live, work, and breathe. Achieving a significant reduction in pollution from industrial sources in Pilsen, achieving this cleanup without causing industrial jobs or businesses to be lost. This is our team. Citlali Trujillo is our project manager. Stephanie Leandro is our art support, and myself, the artist in residence. This is information regarding Art Chicago, which has graciously funded this program. They actually funded the 12 public artworks in 2003. Again, it says Art Chicago launched in 2023 as a final project of the Illinois Science and Energy Innovation Foundation. After a huge success, funding 12 public artworks across the city, the Chicago Frontline Fund saw a need and an opportunity to continue supporting community-centered artwork in Chicago's neighborhoods. Now, Art Chicago is an official program of the Chicago Frontline Fund. This program will support artists and residents at community-based grassroots organizations, transitions for artists and organizations as they work together to create healthier and more spaces. So this is the Art Chicago's the fellowship. Again, we have been awarded this grant through Art Chicago. Keep on to the next slide. This is just more information regarding similar to the information I was speaking of before. With this specific grant, we're working on a new sculpture that will be located at Canalport Riverwalk. It's another seating area that was across a view of like Damon Silos. And so the sculpture is to honor like the Damon Silos and also to talk about healing, because there was a resistance that happened like within the community that didn't want the Damon Silos to be torn down. They wanted a green space, and unfortunately that didn't happen. And they're no longer there. And so this is in honor of that. And also there's other parts of this project, but we can move on. I'll talk about that then. So this was the Urbanism project. I did this with Cynthia Weiss, Steve Levy from Hugh, and from Rachel Harlock from Freshwater Lab. So this was also a lot of mosaic artists that helped contribute to this piece. And this is a metal sculpture that we designed and worked with fabricators to have it installed and created. And now it's just a beautiful seating area that anybody can join. And it's at Canalport Riverwalk, which was a park that I had just learned about when I started doing this project. This was our unveiling for the Chicago grant. It was an amazing time. We had a lot of organizations, that partner organizations, Shed Aquarium, Friends of Chicago River, MPDC was there, Coastal Arts and Community House, a lot of arts partners, DJ partners, and just people doing great work along the river. So the sculpture is inspired by Velma, and there's some information regarding Velma, which is originated in Mexico, but was inspired by Spain and different cultures. It was like a convergence of these different cultures, European, Islamic, Chinese. It's one of the reasons why I was drawn to this, and also this is heavily something that we see often in our community, in our district, and just in general. But I feel like this is a way to kind of was like recreated through stained glass, but it's not going to be stained glass. So you can go to the next slide. So this is what the inspiration for the shade structure. I was looking at, again, stained glass, but this is not stained glass, this is like acrylic inserts. And so as you can see, like they're sitting there, it's like it's on the tilt, and then there's like the beautiful shadows that are being cast down. And there's another example, I just like that, like the texture of it. Well, here's the proposal. This is just the concept, initial concept design for the top, what it would look like at the top, to see the area view for the shade structure. And then this is the concept part for where the Damon Silos used to be under there, and where the space would be. I have been told that we would maybe have to build in that the green space to have it to mount it there. But I am still open to obviously open to receiving community feedback, and then this is part of the project. Thank you.
Questions for Delilah?
Yeah, what kind of materials will the sculpture be?
So it would be metal and the acrylic inserts, and then I think they also recommended polycarbonate. And we're talking to 3 fabricators right now, and who all who are familiar with this type of shade structure. And I'm hoping if we can create this, that maybe we can also create more where in spaces where you can't have trees because of like remediation in certain spaces. And there's some places like in Canal Orchards, for example, where we can't plant trees, but we can maybe put shade structure where there's some seating.
And I think you brought us some swag, right?
Oh, I brought some coloring sheets and some printouts of the shade structure. If anybody wants to give the feedback or take it home and tell their friends.
When can we see this?
Oh, it's hopefully to be installed in October this year. If everything goes well.
Thank you, Delilah. And keep in mind, the coloring sheets are not just for kids anymore, so grab one on the way out.
Sorry, I stood up. Everybody.
No, you're it. You're it. All right. I appreciate that you're ready.
Yeah.
So, so I know a lot of you are not regular attendees, and so you're here to hear this guy tonight. So here he is, Gerardo Garcia from Urbanism to talk about the new missing middle development.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Gerardo Garcia. I'm an architect and urban designer. Principal, can we get the next slide? Yeah, principal and founder of the Urbanism Bureau, which is a architecture, urban plan, and urban design firm, and also run Urbanism LLC, which is where we do real estate development. We could get the next slide. Really quick, just an overview of the project that we're presenting tonight and kind of what we're calling our strategy for development here. Is first and foremost, we're proposing, we believe, in conversations and through our research, housing types that really meet community needs and meet community goals, and that's through the 2-flat. It took a lot of work with the city and the Department of Planning to kind of get that right, at least we feel. And so we're here now, and that's what you're going to see in a little bit. We also, as a trained architect, really have a commitment to community design and scale, and building things in communities that feel like they belong, but that are also, contemporary. And then again, looking at it through the lens of our urban planning background and training is really a focus on building home ownership to this project. And we feel that the proposal is aligned with the MPDC neighborhood plan, or the McKinley Park neighborhood plan from 2021, in that it provides both homeowner and rental opportunities. And obviously there's an affordability aspect to this also. And then lastly, locally led, and that's me, right? I lead the development team, born and raised Chicagoan, grew up and still live on the other side of the sanitary strip canal in Little Village. And frankly, I know McKinley Park better than Douglas Park, which was my home park, because as my family did the migration from Pilsen, my Piaz would take care of me in the summer here in McKinley Park. Really approach this work, hopefully with the sensitivity and the earnestness that it deserves. Because one of my firm's really huge principles is that every community deserves design that's worthy of them and that's dignified. So with that, we can go to the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept here. So we're proposing 2 housing types, as you can see on the slide. Type A, which is 2 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath units. And a cool feature of these is that these will have what we call an owner's unit. They're both 3 bedrooms, but one is just a little bit bigger, split level. And as a result of that split level, the living areas will have up to 13 feet ceilings, which is a very rare amenity. And then the second type is also 2 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath units. Those are actually identical units, so there is no kind of hierarchy between the owner and the renter there. They're kind of back to back on the site. You can see that a little bit in the mapping. But in total, we're building 10 units of housing through 5 fee simple 2-flats, meaning that they can just be bought with the land that they sit on, and providing 5 home ownership opportunities in this corner of the community. Next slide, please. And this is what that looks like a little bit as we start to zoom in. You can see this is the north side of the street with the 4 homes. Next slide, please. And this is a more frontal view of, you can get a better view of both of the designs here. The Blue House, as we call it, is a design by Productora. They're actually a firm that's headquartered in Mexico City with a presence here in the States. And the green and white house is designed by the Urbanism LLC. And so we're working really hard to bring these both of these projects into construction documents and get them ready for permits. We can talk a little bit more about what that looks like in that timeline in a bit. The next slide, please. As I mentioned, I lead the development team. This is our team and growing. As we develop the project more, we will begin to add more sub-consultants and subcontractors, especially as we work towards financing. And so really working and bringing everyone into the team that's aligned in principle with some of our mission and some of the goals that we're trying to achieve here. And obviously, we consider everyone in this room a stakeholder, MPDC, the Department of Planning, the Alderwoman's Office, Julia Ramirez. Thank you for being here tonight. And so really looking forward to working with everyone to bring these projects to reality. Next slide, please. And what is that reality? What does it look like to bring these projects to reality? So, we were awarded kind of the middle of this first quarter of the year. And so we started, having conversations with the city and negotiating an initial term sheet for the purchase of the land and as well as the subsidy. And we started the architecture process and the drawings for permit. We're in the process of financing, going through underwriting with banks and figuring out the puzzle of how do you make all the money work to bring these projects to reality. And we'll expect to start negotiating a full redevelopment agreement with the city shortly. And our goal that we're working really hard towards is to begin construction late this year, before the winter hits, obviously. And then we're estimating about 12-month construction period with an overlap in sales and occupancy for basically an 18-month project. And then, bottom line is less important, but there is city subsidy. There is subsidy that the city is providing to the project as part of the missing middle program, which comes with some requirements. And it's also reimbursement basis, so it's not like the city's just writing us a check. We have to spend that money to get it back, and so that's what that bottom line is, kind of figuring out how much money we're going to have to spend before we can get all the money back. Next slide, please. And so really quickly, some of the next steps that we're doing, you guys that maybe live in that area, hopefully that are here, you might start to see some activity in the coming weeks. We'll start to do soil borings. We've already started some of the environmental research and investigation. We're going to have surveyors out there measuring the sites. And as I mentioned, we're working to complete and submit plans to the city for building permits. We're negotiating that redevelopment agreement with the city, and we're working towards financing that construction. And eventually, we'll hope to break ground by the end of the year, before the end of the year, I should say. So that's it in a nutshell. And then just for fun, show you guys a couple of the color studies that we did of the project. I don't know if we can go to the next couple slides. Just trying to find the right fit for the project, but we can go to the next one. And really just, we're still early phases, so we're flexible and we're open, and these may get changed and developed, and certainly interested in hearing any thoughts that you all may have on that.
And a couple questions.
Yeah.
Back up. Maybe go back to the slide with the green ones that I think is what you actually are.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, for people who are not familiar, and this might be a question for you, in fact, can you explain what the Missing Middle program is?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Erica Selke. I'm the planner for the Southwest region with the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development. So the Missing Middle program has been in play for about 2 years now. This is the third round that the city has done. So what this means is the city put out an RFP for city-owned land in certain areas, and asked, developers to, come in with proposals. And what we really hope to see out of this program, as Mardo talked about, are homeownership opportunities. There's a requirement that, the building owner live in the property. And we also want to build wealth in the community. So we're looking for more than one unit. 2 flats, 3 flats. There are some proposals in different areas that have 4 units, so that the property owner could live in the building and then rent out a unit or have family stay in the unit. So again, building wealth and creating a little bit more density in that missing middle housing that we're not seeing as developed as much in the city. In terms of subsidy, the city will provide the land for $1 per parcel, city-owned parcel, and then also $150,000 per unit. So this helps bring down some of the costs for the developer. And as Ricardo mentioned, it's reimbursed on a certain timeline depending on how quickly construction moves for the project. Another aspect, because city money is involved, there are MPE and WBE requirements, 26% MPE, 6% WBE, and all construction workers and activity is required to be paid prevailing wage. So those are the requirements.
What are those acronyms stand for?
Minority business enterprise, which is something that the city puts out, and then women's business enterprise.
So you need 26% and another percent of what?
So 26% MBE, which is the minority business enterprise. So those are companies that have a certificate from the city saying that they're minority owned. And then 6% women business enterprise, which is the same thing with the woman owned
Got it.
business.
So like the spending for contractors and stuff,
Yes.
anything, the total cost, you need a certain allocation to those 2 types of business.
Correct.
And that's either or and.
Both.
And.
Yes. I think I saw the orange sweater here in the back.
So I understand the city is providing the land for $1, but what if you're in a situation where you only have it? Can you still take part in this program or no?
No, because we tie it to the land sale. So one piece we didn't talk about is the land sale still has to go to city council. So we hope to introduce it to city council next month, depending on what we hear, the community, and then it would be voted out potentially in July of this year.
I heard you mention building wealth and some requirements for prevailing wage and that. To that point, I have a question as far as like labor standard, labor requirements. Are there any, is there like apprenticeship requirements, safety standards, making sure that we have the best trained workers on these projects, delivering the best quality project to do those things, to make sure that there's apprenticeship standards in place and some safety standards in place?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So they have to follow the city building code, have to get city building permits, be inspected by the city. This is a city project and that we want to build a great product. And so that's why I'm working with the developer, with the regulations that are currently in place. They have to follow all of that.
If I could just check it, yeah, as a builder developer, I'll just say, I think I mentioned earlier a commitment to this idea that every part of the city deserves, quality built environment, quality design. I think the same goes for construction also. So I can tell you we're committed to that and open to, as that project team grows, bringing on people who have that same commitment and yeah, so certainly, yes.
So the project, is it only in the McKinley Park area or is it all over the city?
So it's across the south and west sides. So, it started in North Lawndale, I believe was the first neighborhood. I'm sorry, I don't have a map of all of it. If you go on our website, you can see a map of all the places. We just closed an application period on Monday for, South Chicago. So, and then there's also, some in McKinley Park, West Chatham, North Lawndale. I can't remember all of them right now, but, yes, we hope to see south and west sides. And if anyone's interested in the program going forward, we'll most likely have another call for applications when Shy Block Builder opens in October of 2026. So be on the lookout for that.
One question for you. Are you willing to share the plans or is it proprietary for you guys?
It depends to what end, so I certainly can have that conversation. It's still early days, so we're still like refining, but generally, yes, right?
Also, for purposes of the recording, can you share the address of these properties?
Yeah, sorry. I realized as you asked your question, this is the, oh boy.
34th place.
34th place, I was trying to think of the 100 blocks. 2800?
Just west of Western.
Yeah, just west of Western.
23 is 11.
23?
Says 11.
No, this is,
This is 30, 34, 45.
next to the tracks.
Next to the tracks in between Western and the tracks.
So I can't remember the exact 100 block, but it's West 34th place, exactly between Western and the tracks.
How long is this project is gonna last, or when are you guys gonna start?
Yeah, so again, our goal is to start before the end of the year. That means, to us, what that means is closing on the financing, closing on the purchase of the lot with the city of Chicago, the development agreement, and then the next day we can start construction. So that's the goal. It seems funny to say, but like building these types of projects is pretty complicated because you're adding that city subsidy into it. So the financing process, banks are, just not used to it. And so, it's a process to get there. So that's our goal, and we're working really hard to get there. But it all depends on how that financing process goes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly piggyback on my other question. I know the wrong ordinance and but what if the land was acquired in a previous large, lot program from the city, or it has to be rented?
It has to be tied to the land sale. So the redevelopment agreement, is tied to that land sale. So that's why it has to be a city. Yeah.
Hi, we've got a lifelong city resident. I was wondering, would there be opportunities, you mentioned the prevailing wage, would there be opportunities for local tradesmen and women to participate in the projects?
And I forgot to mention too, 50% of the construction hours need to be done by City of Chicago residents.
Yeah, personally, my commitment would be to get as close to that 50% as, residents in the zip codes around the project. We've got to figure out how to get there, but that would be my own personal goal.
Thank you.
Yeah, question for both of you, around like planning. So 2 questions is like, how much of a forward-looking view do you have in terms of like the windows? Because it sounds like you're only allowed to apply a specific window for a specific neighborhood. So that's my first question is like, do you guys already have listed out like the next 5 windows for the next 5 neighborhoods? And then the second question is like, could you kind of give a little bit of an example, because these are multi-year plans, multifaceted, right? You can't just drop everything that you're doing and then have everything whipped up in the 60-day window period. If anything, you need a lot of lead time to get, to kind of start and be best positioned to finish your plan. So if you could speak to the first part, if you could speak to the second part of like, how is the city helping when it comes to like forward-looking planning, and then how did you go about your planning process?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we're focusing on neighborhoods in the south and west sides. And Shy Block Builder is a city website that shows all city-owned land. And twice a year, we open up certain lots for sale within Shy Block Builder. So you go to that website and apply. The window just closed, I mentioned on Monday. So the next one would open in October. And we've been looking to go from focusing on west side neighborhoods to south side neighborhoods. So we will be back and forth between the two listing dates. And in terms of looking for property, we need property in neighborhoods that have historically had more density and maybe have, lost it a bit over the years. So we look at that. City-owned land, of course, city-owned land that's clean, because we do own city-owned land that, needs to be cleaned up, and that could take a long time and cost a lot of money. So looking at clean properties, and McKinley Park has very few city-owned properties. This is essentially it. So this was an opportunity to get some more sort of wealth building, homeownership opportunities in this particular neighborhood.
Can I just add on there?
Yeah, please.
It seems like a lot of people have interest of like missing middle. I do encourage people, they have a really great newsletter, the DPD department does. I would sign up for that. They do really well also keeping up with their website. I feel like a lot of departments don't, they do. Also, like, depending on, let's say you're looking for a specific neighborhood, I myself as an alderman, I have a regional planner. So all of us do, all the aldermen do. We meet with them very regularly. And so let's say you are looking online and there is a lot, I encourage you to talk to the aldermen to also kind of think ahead and say, hey, are you thinking about maybe doing like a missing middle here if there's an opportunity to do so. So I think there's some lanes as well for you guys to be more proactive if DPD isn't already thinking about it.
I guess the second part of that question, from my perspective, that 60-day window is a sprint to get it done. And I think echoing on the Alderwoman's statement of like there seems to be interest. It's not just making a pretty picture for the proposal, but I have a small but mighty team of folks that work with me, and so part of, and I don't mean to speak for DPD, but part of what I understood we were being evaluated on was on capacity, and that's both financial but also like experience. So I think that's a really important part of this. To be able to turn around that proposal in 60 days is kind of a test of that capacity too.
So to clarify, so in October, there's a 60-day window to apply so that you have the opportunity to participate in the program. It's not like 60-day window to buy up land for $1, right? It's just to apply.
This is to apply.
Okay.
But as Fernando mentioned, and you can look online, all of our past RFPs are online, so you can look to see exactly what the criteria are. So we look for that.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry,
We got a corner up here.
So I was curious with the missing middle, is there a certain income that you're sort of targeting as part of that program? And then also with your proposal, what you're projecting for the cost for students?
So the missing middle program was designed around 140% AMI, which really means kind of middle income, right? And not necessarily like high middle, but it's certainly not like households that need like heavy subsidy for their housing, right? So for example, I looked this up not too long ago, a household of 4 at 140% AMI is probably bringing in somewhere around, I think it was like $160,000 or $170,000 for that household. So 4, that could be 2 adults and 2 children, or 3 working adults and a child, or something, or 4 working adults, whatever that household composition is, it's about $170,000. And obviously, there's the other aspects of it where creditworthiness, all the things that most people have to go through to be able to purchase a home are going to apply here. In terms of the cost, we're still kind of working through that and finalizing what the construction costs are, honestly. Because I think part of the reason why the city provides the subsidy is that, and this is a very classic example, but it costs the same to build any of these houses in McKinley Park as it does in Linden Park, right? But you obviously can't sell it for the same amount. And so that subsidy kind of backfills and creates the opportunity in McKinley Park for it to actually be financially feasible, even though it's still not as profitable as the way that
My question is very related. It's just like, since you are being subsidized, will that be reflected in the sale? And do you prioritize, like, you know, people in the neighborhood or families over individuals or people over like corporations who get to buy?
So, to your point is, yeah, so the subsidy does come with requirements. The city has put caps on the sale price of the properties. Frankly, it's a little bit high in my opinion. It's $400,000 per unit. So that means that in theory, we could sell, you know, either of these 2 flats for $800,000. That's not gonna happen, one, because the market just doesn't support it. There's that reality, but also that's not what we're trying to accomplish here. That's not part of our ethos. So, so there's that. And then to the second question, there's federal housing law that prevents us from discriminating against certain groups or folks. What I would say is, you know, I know there's an appetite for this opportunity to be made available to the community. And I can say, you know, our commitment, my team's commitment of ensuring that folks in the community know about the opportunity, right? But at the end of the day, we can't say this is only for McKinley Park residents. You know, it's just, you know, we could get sued for that. And there was another part to your question, I'm sorry. I'll let Kate.
One thing that she asked about corporations.
Oh.
These must be owner
Yes,
occupied.
that's what it was, yes. They must be owner occupied. So that gets at that. And I think, you know, part of the philosophy here, certainly in early conversations that we've had when we were creating this concept was like, you know, they must be owner occupied. And when you get to pick your neighbors and you're living with your neighbors, you tend to be a lot more reasonable, you know, when you're setting rent prices. And so that's part of the philosophy also. Yeah, sorry.
In your proposal, I was wondering, with the expansion of the ADU like garage units, is there the potential for that to be on the lot to help with density and generational wealth?
Yeah, so yes, but that would be, one, it would drive up the cost, right? So now you really are getting into like, it's basically a 3 flat, right? And we all know, I've looked at the numbers in this area, a 3 flat is not something that a homeowner is buying. It's usually an investor, right? Because they're up there like high $900,000. So I don't think we want to do that, just because we do want to make sure that we're not inflating prices for the community. That being said, because this is a wealth building strategy, if someone hopefully from the community buys one of these homes, they can, in the future, as a wealth building strategy, build an ADU. Nothing in the zoning prohibits it. They could do it in the future. They could build some equity, take that equity out, put it back into their property, that kind of thing.
I think just to piggyback on that I think maybe more of the question was like, are all of the zoning ordinance, regulations on the parcel able to be met with an ADU on there in terms of open yard space, setbacks, all that kind of stuff? Like it can accommodate.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, we're not showing a garage in any of these renderings just for no other reason than we just didn't. But we are contemplating a garage on each of these properties. So part of that is just, putting in, our carpenters know enough joists and trusses so that you could build a level on top of it. And that doesn't really add much to the cost of the project, but it saves you a lot in the long run.
And making sure that like the footings for that are
Exactly.
can
Exactly.
bear
So
and stuff too. Yeah, I think that's an important part, yeah.
Let's see if I can remember. Has Urbanism LLC done similar projects around the city, or is this the first?
Yeah, so personally, I, again, born and raised and still live across the sanitary ship canal. For probably 15 years, have been buying and holding property on that side of the city, and renovating it and doing the architecture, et cetera. And that one is a wealth building strategy for myself and my family, but also an affordability preservation strategy, because I could see what was happening, 10, 15 years ago. And so I just decided to do something about it. So there's that. And then we have also done new construction, kind of spec housing in the last year or two.
This is the first time engaging with the missing middle program?
Yeah.
I know it's early design stages, but I was wondering, had there been any thoughts to like what materials you using, like brick is such a big part of the character of this.
Brick is a big part of the character of Chicago. Unfortunately, prevailing wage brick masons are make it very difficult to do these projects in the budgets and with all the requirements that we have. But we are using high quality materials. So both of these homes, both the Blue House and the Urbanism House, are contemplating fiber cement panels or fiber cement siding in the Blue House with a mixture of panels, and the Urbanism House is fiber cement panels with also some fiber cement siding and standing seam metal siding as well. Yeah, so they're going to be well built. They're going to be quality materials, and a lot of it is just in how you detail and put things together that really matters also.
So the thing that I'm seeing, like the container, it's actually like similar to a container, like the metal containers.
I'm sorry?
Like a shipping container?
No, the standing, no, this is, that's actually fiber cement panels on the bottom. Detailed in a way that provides that kind of corrugated effect.
On the 150,000 per unit, so that's like for a 2-flat, would be 300,000 and city financing, $800,000 in that case is what they want to assign for value. So does ownership need to solve for that additional 500,000? Is that like a loan? Like, so what is the significance of the 800,000 valuation? I guess is the first question.
Oh, it's the income requirement, right? So basically, so I mentioned, like, as an example, right? A family of 4 at 140% AMI, which means area median income. And the other thing to note about that, it's not just the median income for the city of Chicago, but the whole region, right? So there are suburbs and places that inflate that. So a family of 4, at 140% AMI, that's a total household income of $170,000 a year, right? Then you basically calculate, well, you shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your income on housing, right? And so you do the mortgage calculation, et cetera, that gets you to like no more than $400,000 per unit. So again, the 800,000 is like based on that calculation. The reality is lower than that, much lower for McKinley Park.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, the value of these homes, will that impact the neighbors, like property taxes? What are those kind of, are those implications taken into account, or?
You want to give the official answer, and then I'll give my opinion.
Well, I think the first thing is it gets these lots back into productive use. These lots have not been paying property taxes for over known counted decades. So it gets those back into productive use. It creates more units, which, this is something that like urban planners and people have been thinking about for a long time. Building more units actually lowers housing prices. So that's a piece of it as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, for those of us that are property owners, we all got our latest property tax bill and probably were floored by it. Part of that reason, and there's a lot of factors in there, but part of that is one, vacant land, but also all of the vacancy downtown, where all of that commercial office space isn't paying taxes anymore, et cetera. And so I think the overall, I would just say, thought, and this is me speaking, right? Like, the more vacant parcels you get on the tax rolls, ideally, the better that is for everyone else's tax burden, right? Because there's more people pitching in there.
I'm sure there's obviously these have to meet code for the city and stuff. Are there any plans for going a little above for tourism features and making sure the buildings are here for a long time in the future?
Yeah, so I actually personally toured a Green Line home a couple weeks ago. And so, one, because we are thinking about that. And so, right now, running the numbers and doing the feasibility on making these all electric. Obviously, they have a lot of, like, they've been doing it for a long time, so they've got a lot of institutional knowledge and ways that they can make the numbers work. And so, Yeah, thinking through that right now, and that would be awesome if we can figure it out. If we can't, they will be like, you know, for sure, like super insulated, you know, very energy efficient, other than, you know, using natural gas.
Are they thinking of like a solar power partnership?
Yeah, so that's part of, you know, what we saw at Green Line also, where it's a little bit more complicated in particularly at this scale. So, you know, in those homes, for example, again, it's complicated. They install the solar panels. The owner owns all of the hardware, the panels, the inverter, all the things that make the system work. In order for it to work, there's a tax credit, which is, it doesn't seem like it's going away. But in order for it to work financially, the builder has to take advantage of that tax credit. So there's this period where the builder kind of continues to like own and sublease the system back to the new property owner. It's really complicated. I don't know that we're gonna do solar panels, especially because this is like our first time trying it. So, but you know, we've looked into it. I'll put it that way.
So then where you're at in terms of the process, you already successfully applied, is that right?
Yeah.
And then now you're in the, what do you call it, process?
So now we're starting the legislative process. So that's where it goes to city council for the land seal, where the RDA is attached to the land seal. And then once that's approved, we start working towards selling the property to the developer. And then construction starts, and then we start looking at all the compliance numbers and getting reimbursing money back to the developer.
So all you have to do for the application period is try to win that bid, and then there's the paperwork and legislative process that happens afterwards.
Right.
So it could be a chance that you win the application, but there's still a couple things that you need to successfully navigate.
Yes.
And last question, because I saw it, redevelopment agreement is different than everything else on this slide, like what is that?
So that's the agreement between the city and the developer that goes to city council that says they have to do this many units, they have to do the prevailing wage, they have to do the MEWP, all of those regulations are put into this agreement that's approved by city council.
Okay, got it.
And if you don't meet any of them, you don't get the subsidy, right? So.
Got it, okay.
Is there anything with being a first-time home buyer or not? The city probably, that's not required.
No, and maybe this is a question for the room, because on the home buyer side, I think, speaking for ourselves, we'd be interested in engaging with any organizations in the community that do that kind of home buyer education. Just, you know, in a partnership of like making sure that they're aware of the opportunity and maybe even creating a pipeline of buyers. So I'm just putting that out there for anyone in the room.
What was the question?
It was more of just an offer of partnership between us and any community organizations in the community that do home buyer education. We're more than open to exploring partnership and figuring out ways to create a pipeline of home buyers for these that are from the community.
Do you guys know if I think maybe Department of Housing has something that's working?
They tend to be more like, they tend to operate out of more like nonprofit organizations. Like I know TRT has a really good established program.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So if there's anyone in the community that you guys come across or that know of or can think of that does that work, we'd be more than happy to be in touch with them.
MPDC would be a great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, very big, it almost walks from your right.
Which is right in front of the.
Sorry, I missed that.
Who from the city is watching over the redevelopment agreement? You know, kind of like the watchdog. Who would that be?
So that is the law department. It's also the finance department within DPD. There is procurement.
buildings.
No particular one person or entity in charge of watching the prevailing wage and all the other redevelopment agreement requirements?
It's a whole group of people.
Whole group of people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just had a meeting on this actually this week. So we have a committee on contracts and oversight. So if you had anything that you wanted to put into question, that would be the right committee. But so what Erica is saying is that there's multiple departments that have to oversee this and make sure that people are compliant.
Okay.
Want to do a time check? We gotta get out of here. Starting out here in 10 minutes, so let's library staff to go home. Get your next questions in.
Yeah, please check out the website, Missing Middle, and learn more about the program.
So before we wrap up, do want to make you aware of some upcoming community events. So the two events that we talked about that are next week for the Chinese American Service League workshop regarding their new campus, and also for Velma Thomas Early Childhood Center, those are both on the 28th. On Saturday, June 6th, the monthly potlucks at the Play Garden start. You show up at the Play Garden with a dish, that's all there is to it. And you talk to neighbors and let your kids run around if you have kids, and if you don't, you can talk to adults. Saturday, June 13th, there'll be a cleanup at Canal Origins Park, and that's going to be the first of several events at the park this summer. And then our next speaker series is also going to be about parks. It'll be on the third Wednesday of June, right here. And we're going to have a group talking from Loyola, talking about the installation of a new trash trap at Park 571. And this is under a grant from, that will put up a trash trap, but also study the trash to try and figure out, where it's supposed to be coming from, what's here, and how do we prevent it from ending up in the river. So again, thanks for coming. We have a few minutes if you want to hang out and ask questions. And also, please, talk to new people.